viewers, welcome to another interesting class on velocity time graph. In today's class, we are going to learn how to calculate total distance covered, average speed, and acceleration on a velocity time graph. Let's attempt the first question on the board. It says, the figure above represents the velocity time graph of a body in motion. Determine the distance covered throughout the motion. When your question asks you to calculate the distance covered on a velocity time graph, that will be equivalent to the area of the shape that appear on the graph. So the distance covered, the total distance covered is equal to the area of the shape. Then what is the name of this shape? It's a trapezium. So that will be equal to the area of a trapezium. Then you can also divide this shape into three. You can say that the area of a triangle plus the area of a rectangle plus the area of a triangle. So let's first use a trapezium. Then what is the formula for calculating a trapezium? That will be half a plus b times height. Then which is equal to what? Half. Then what is a and b? A and b are the two parallel lines. Let's bring the shape out. These two parallel lines, this line is A, then the line B is the other line down. Then what is the size of this A? What is the length of A? From here down to this place is A, then which is equivalent to 10 to 20. So from 10 to 20 we have what? 10. Distance between 10 and 20 is 10. That will be 20 minus 10. So A equal to 10. So what will be our B? B is from 0 to 25. So B equal to 25. Then we are going to need the height of the trapezium. So the height is from here down to this point. When we trace it to this place, which is equivalent to 4. So the height is 4. So that will be A and B. A is 10. Then B is 25. Then multiply by the height. The height is 4. So which is equal to what? 2 cancel 4 to give us 2. 10 plus 25 will give us 35. Then multiply by 2. 35 times 2 will give us what? 70. Then distance is always in meter. So that will be 70 meter. So the distance covered throughout the motion equal to 70 meter. Then you can also use the area of the first shape plus the area of shape, the second shape, plus the area of the third shape. So that will be the area of a triangle. The first shape is a triangle. Then area of a triangle is half base times height. Then plus the area of a rectangle. B is a rectangle. Rectangle is length times breadth. Then the third shape is a triangle. That will be half base times height. Then which is equal to what? 1 divided by 2 times. The base of the first triangle is from 0 to 10. From 0 to 10 is the base. That will be equal to 10. Then multiply by the height. The height of this triangle is 4. Multiply by 4. Then plus length times breadth. That is what? The rectangle. The length is from 10 to 20, which is equal to 10. So that will be 10 multiplied by, then the breadth is what? Is the height. That is 4. From here down to this place, that is 4. Then plus the area of the second triangle, that is C. The base of this triangle is from 20 to 25. 25 minus 20 will give us 5. So the base is equal to 5. That will be equal to 1 over 2 multiplied by 5. Then multiply by the height. The height of this triangle is 4. Multiply by 4. So 2 goes in 4. That is 2. 10 times 2 will give us 20. Then plus 10 times 4 will give us 40. then plus 2 here 1, 2 in 4 will give us 2. 5 times 2 will give us what? 10. Now let's add everything together. 20 plus 40 plus 10 will give us 70 what? Meter. Will give us 70 meter. So the distance covered throughout the motion is equal to what? Equal to 70 meter. Very simple.